Hello, it's Bart from NatureManufacture. I would like to show you our new River Auto Material 2019, and yeah, let's take a look on this tutorial step by step. First of all, we have to be sure that we have this checkbox turned on. Basically, it turns timing on in your project. Our water and flow is based on time. That's why it's very important. The second thing, that you couldn't have any compile errors in your project before you import our stuff, because if you will have any errors, editor script will not compile, and these two levels create splines and legs will simply not show up. It will simply block our system. So be sure that you don't have errors and then import our River Auto material. So yeah, let's play with the system. I will show you how much you could build with it, how fast and how effective in your game development it could be. The first step in our system is to create river spline. We go to create 3D object, create river spline. We set up few points with left mouse button and control. With shift we could add points between other points. With control shift we could remove them. In point level we could do the same operation. We could add point between points or remove point, or even select point if you want to see where exactly it is, if this debug is not enough. Okay, let's modify this spline a bit. We will move this spline up, so we'll go to points and change it pivot to center, so it will be easier for us at the moment, and we move it for up just to give you more visibility what we'll do. First of all, we could change river width globally for the whole river. There is a noise option to get a natural look effect, so we could add automatic noise to our river. We could change the whole shape of the river simply per point with R button, and we could do the same in point level. So yeah, it's pretty simple to change the size per point. We could manage the triangles and shape of the river as well. If we use U or V slider, will change amount of verts per our spline. We rather advise to use square verts, so equal verts, so tessellation will have no problems, and all effects like Vertex, color and Flowmap will be pretty regular over the shape. We could change also rotation of our spline. We could rotate it as we want. If we'll change the red angle, it will change vertex normals of the spline, useful for rivers mostly. Let's add now material and whole information about the river. We simply drag and drop yellow river profile, and we have whole information about it. We could move points, and we see that material automatically react on the surface angle. So it automatically create cascades, noise and waterfalls just on angles. When angle is hard, it simply create cascade. When we move normals over the river, we see that it also react. It gives nice noises, right? We could create cascade even on pretty flat surface just because we need it. We could change the UV scale of the mesh, as we see, the tilling. We could even invert our river or rotate the UV. For rotation, we rather will see this properly on swamp. If we will rotate this UV now, we see that it rotate the whole texture by 90 degrees. Yeah, let's for example choose other profile like a swamp with leaves. Simply drag and drop other profile, and we'll see that we have leaves with roots floating on the water surface. Pretty nice. As well, we could back to standard river simply by drag and drop river big profile. Very easy. The whole system is based on profiles, on which we keep information about UV, about shape, about number of triangles. Flowmap is also saved on it. The physics, the curves, and terrain painting layers as well, and all mixing terrain simulation information, a lot. Let's choose maybe road profile now, and we'll play with it a bit. Basically, you could change the lighting setting on your spline. For example, we could turn off the shadows which cast the road. For river it's proper, for road maybe not a bit. Okay, let's maybe play with other aspect of the spline. We'll go to wireframe. The shape of the mesh is pretty strange. We simply can move the verts across the mesh. It's very useful to do not use huge amount of verts and keep nice looking effects, for example curved borders. If we'll go back to river, we see that we could manage whole shape of the spline as well. We simply set all mesh curves. We could do the same per point in point panel. For example, we'll choose the point number 5 and we move the spline. And we see that in real time we could manage the shape of the road or river or any other object that the spline represents. It's very useful. Some people use it even for cliffs. So it's very universal object. You could truly build something complex from it. Anyway, we could always back to our standard mesh as well. Another cool feature which we have is snapping. We could, for example, snap our spline into the terrain shape or any other shape. It's useful for paths and dirty roads, maybe for asphalt not. We could take normals from terrain. Sometimes it's useful. For example, if you will take river profile, and we see that we could have normals from terrain which gives additional noise. Sometimes it's useful. It's an option. Okay, with snapping. We could also snap to objects. This is a very interesting option because if you have more complex waterfall, for example, you could snap it to shape under the water. We'll use capsule here. We'll put it somewhere like here. Okay. And now we will snap our mesh to the capsule. We simply snap and it is working like that. It's mostly probably useful for roads where you could build pretty complex situation like bridges. You could change snapping also per point. So you simply choose point and unsnap or snap it. As we see when we'll choose road, for example, and when we will move a point which is snapped, unsnapped, we could freely manage it, and snapped point still is stick to the terrain. It only changes normals, which also could be pretty useful. You don't change the position and you get different normals from the spline. Okay, next step, which is about mesh splitting. There are two ways to split your mesh. First, you could split into submeshes. As we see, you have 3 submeshes here, for example, which are still the same spline. The second way is to split the whole spline object into 2 splines. So we go to the split option, we choose the point which we want to split, for example point number 5, and we click split. Now we have 2 splines which are connected to each other and also hold whole information that they have before. So yeah, very useful thing. We could also undo everything with Ctrl+Z. So it's simple. If we made a mistake, we could back very easily to our last step. Why we want to hold splines in parts or submeshes? Just because of the cooling. We don't want to render one big object over the whole scene. It's unoptimal. So now we'll go to vertex color stuff. For vertex color, we'll use this river. It have more verts, as we see on view and v, and we go to vertex color panel. Now we could paint per each color separately. For example, air is a clean water. G channel in water shader will give us noises, small cascade. B channel will give us a big cascade. Of course, we could mix it. We could make it more soft like that. So it's a very useful thing to add additional noises to your water or effects just in this place. Of course, you could go back to automatic color and simply paint by black. There's an option to use alpha channel to blend this with any other water system on the asset store. You simply use alpha and you blend our streams and rivers into any other water surface or object. Okay, for example, now we will choose a swamp material to show you maybe different possibilities of the vertex color. If we will use, for example, a red channel, we plant green duckweed, non-transparent water. In green channel we have roots, and yeah, they look pretty nice. In B channel we hold in our swamp a clean water. So we could build very complex thing. For example, we could use air channel with duckweed on the river border and plant there, for example, grass. And we hold clean water in the middle of the river, and it will be the part of the river which moves smoothly. So we have pretty nice swamped river out of the box. Yeah, there are many possibilities that this kind of vertex coloring stuff gives. It's a freedom. You could of course use mixed colors as well. It's the only limit is your creativity. We advise to play with this, play with different materials, sometimes even not our materials, just material which support vertex color. For example, a road which is covered by snow. On air channel you could hold snow, on G channel wet snow, and for example on B channel raw asphalt. We have of course debug for vertex color, so you are able to see what exactly is on our spline. So everything is transparent, and then of course you could restart it if you made a mistake or you don't want to use this feature at all. So that's all about our vertex color. The another thing that we'll talk about is Flowmap, which is one of the core features of this system. For Flowmap, we'll use water with cascades, and in Flowmap panel we see there are two options to play with it. First is manual painting. Second is automatic. Automatic is by default. In automatic, we have separated slow water and fast cascade water. If we modify curve of the slow water, we see that we speed up or slow down our water in flat place. The same we could do with waterfalls. For example, we could create such a nice difference on the waterfall, just in one direction or move it. Everything is real time. We see effect out of the box. It's also easy to back to default settings. Simply go back to restart to profile. About Flowmap. Another thing is that automatic Flowmap have noises. We could increase these noises or decrease. It basically gives a bit more natural look that water slow down or speed up in small areas, but use it carefully. It should be smooth because it could generate unexpected effects if it will be too strong. Now we will play with manual painting. We will increase speed of the water in the middle of the river by brush. Remember to keep this smooth because simply with hard blend it will generate artifacts on UV. We have debug and the arrows show direction of the water, colors show the speed. For example, we could even invert the water flow. Simply change this U speed to minus. Remember to keep this very smooth because you will get such an effect. So we simply reduce speed and paint it again and again with slower speed, and we get this. Now we could reduce all problems with brush as well. And we have water which moves in two different directions in one place. And we could even rotate this by 90 degrees. So water will move into the border of the river. Look, it was very easy. Totally easy. The same we could do with another border of the river. We simply change the direction and we get the same result. Flowmap Painter is very easy to use. And the cool thing is that it works on multiple rivers as well at the same time. Now let's play a bit more with waterfalls. We'll speed up the middle of the waterfall while the borders will be pretty slow. Of course, always keep this very smooth to avoid any artifacts on UV. Now we will reduce speed on the borders of the waterfall. Yes, like that. And you see we achieve very interesting effect. The middle of the waterfall is very, very fast while the borders are slow. Very nice stuff. Let's back to our swamp profile. The whole effect will be more visible on it. If we paint Flowmap manually and we will try to change it by curves, you will not get any results. It's because spline have information that this place have been overwritten manually. So the only way to do this is restart to automatic, and now you have full control over the Flowmap on the whole river. There is another thing that should be very interesting in Flowmap, because there's a connection between Flowmap and physics. We set a value which called Flowmap physics, and its connection between water mass and physical power which affect the colliders and objects which flow on the water surface. We advise you to use value equal to 10. It's basic value. Rest could be adjusted by colliders and rigid body and buoyancy script. Another core feature is terrain management. We could manage terrain under the spline. So, for example, we have spline and we could turn on debug, and it will show us how future terrain will look if we'll carve it. We could change the size of the influence of our spline over the terrain. We could change the smooth, which basically is the hardness of the blend between unity terrain shape and shape which comes from our spline. We also have noises, which gives a bit more natural look. Inside the spline and outside the spline noises are separated, just because it gives more control over this. We could change the spline shape and we see how it will affect our riverbed, right? Because the whole future shape is on spline. We click generate and we have nice looking terrain which was carved by our river. Very easy. Now we could play with painting. Basically, you could mix two layers of sand by noises and noise power. There are separated cliffs outside and inside the river. Outside cliffs will paint, for example, we could paint a cliff. Inside we'll rather use for pebbles. You see outside cliff here, and now we will add just a bit inside cliff, cliff, and we, for example, generate such a small rock pebbles. With high blending they will look really good, because this smooth blend, it will pop up these rocks. You could use totally different configuration, different textures for your rivers. They are saved in profiles, so as we, for example, drag and drop a swamp and paint the terrain, we see that it basically paint rocks, moss and grass. You could mix leaves and grass, leaves and moss as you want. It's very fast way to simply drag and drop profile and test our profile and test how it will paint the terrain, and test different configuration. In one example, we, for example, put pebbles inside our river, small pebbles which work really nice with distortion. For example, look at this effect. Yeah, it's nice effect. We made such a profile for mountain river, which you could see, for example, in this place. We mix sand with pebbles and rocks. With distortion, it gives very natural look of mountain stream, right? Basically, R.A.M also manage texturing by curve, terrain paint curve, which is useful for high blending. If you want to get nice effect between grass outside the river and inside, and sand inside the riverbed. We also manage terrain foliage, like details, which means grass and trees. So you could remove automatically grass and trees outside the river bed. So it's pretty complex system, which really give nice effect. But there is something more that we want to show, very important. We called it simulation. We simply set one point on our terrain. So let's create river spline and set one point. Let's choose river width, yeah, and drag and drop profile of our future river. And let's go to simulation level. Here we have whole parameters that will give you ability to simulate river accurate to your terrain. You have river length, amount of points, the point interval, amount of physical sampling between points, and yeah, this could give you very natural look. There's also option to break river or block river to do not go uphill. In most cases it's useful, but sometimes it's good to turn it off. Anyway, let's generate the river right now, and we get the river. We go now to and change the river width again. Then we carve the terrain, we paint the terrain, everything is on profile, so you got river out of the box. You set up only one point and you got the river, and it paint the terrain. So it's very useful tool to give natural look. If you want to change the position of the river, you simply remove point except one. You for example simulate again, or you move the point and click simulation again, or for example let's move this point somewhere like here, and we will click show. As we see, it break river very shortly because it shows that here's the uphill moment. If we will turn it off, river will be properly as well. Sometimes it's not so accurate. We'll work on this. that's why sometimes it's good to turn this option off, because you could truly manage this point yourself, or it will simply be invisible because it was small uphill area, right? Especially when you know where this point is, as it breaks the river in current place. Anyway, you see, we have another river which we built in few seconds, and we paint the terrain, we carve the terrain, and everything works out of the box. That's why we think simulation is a very nice gate for procedural river generation, as you set up only one point, and our lakes and river systems contain API, so you could call all functions and generate rivers from code at runtime. So yeah, it's a very interesting solution, and we will definitely add more features into it. There are also a few more buttons, like file points, which give you ability to import CSV points and generate rivers or lakes. There are tips. With tips, there is manual, which provide you to actual manual, and video tutorials to our button, which will move you to our YouTube channel. There is also Vegetation Studio for Vegetation Studio users, for happy Vegetation Studio users, for Pro and standard version, because this gives huge power to run. If we look at our scene which we built procedurally, we use here Vegetation Studio Pro with its biomes. Basically, biomes could be connected to the river, and it generates swamp, whole river, streams and lakes out of the box around our shape lake or river. So this is very powerful tool. You see, you could modify or generate, or even generate and move Vegetation Studio biome mask at runtime. This function is pretty heavy, so we will advise you to avoid runtime changes. Anyway, if we go to the mask, we see that it contains information about which biome it uses, and whole blending between vegetation outside the spline and vegetation and object which comes from the spline. The same with texturing, the blending between textures, which are most important in when you use high blending on the ground. So yeah, this all nice effect comes just because we use high blending from at our terrain shader. So yeah, biomes and Vegetation Studio Mask are totally powerful tools and give you ability to create such an environment just out of the box. You simply choose the biome, click generate, and you have whole foliage textures painted and planted. Now we will move to lakes. We simply create lake polygon and create 3D objects. We set up few points, the same like with river. We could move these points, we could unlock height, so we could then points could be painted on different height, but it's rather unuseful. Of course, we could move the lake, we could add offset of the mesh as well, so it's pretty flexible. There's also lighting setup, which are for lighting, and we could play with wireframe of the lake, which is very important. First of all, if you look on this, we could increase the smoothness of the border, but it generates pretty odd triangles, which will generate problem in Flowmap and tessellation. That's why we should adjust this. We rather want to use pretty equal triangles, so we'll reduce maximum triangle size, and we get pretty nice grid. If you will also reduce the smoothness outside, we see that we have pretty nice grid, and it will generate and give us nice flow map and tessellation. Basically, system works on profiles as well. So we'll simply choose the profile for our lake. For example, big lake. We as well could use other profiles like in river. So simply drag and drop profile like reflective lake or sea. It could be swamp or swamp with leaves. Yeah, so it's flexible like river. We could change UV scale as well, so the tilling will change. We could play a lot with this, with different results, of course. Yeah, so that's all about profiles and materials. But the thing is that lakes also support vertex color. Vertex color could, in materials for lakes, have different results. For example, for in air channel, we saved slow water with small waves, but in B channel we saved waves that are generated from wind. You know, when you look on the lake, you sometimes see small waves very fast running on the water surface. So you will get such a result just by vertex color. You could also add big waves on B channel, and yeah, that's why you could really play a lot with this lake. It's rather about how much you want to spend time on your lake and how much features do you want to add. So it also supports Vertex Alpha, so you could connect it with different surfaces in many different ways. So I think that's a lot. If you will look on the lake, we also have Flowmap. We have Flowmap, and water always moves from the middle to the lake borders, as we see on the Flowmap. There's noise also. We could add noise to our lake, but remember to do not put it too strong, because we will get such a strange result. Water will be simply too fast, and mixing will be on UV will be very strange. So we rather keep it very smooth in pretty low values, and then we have nice result. Of course, there are much more options, like we could paint manually Flowmap as well, like we had in rivers. Also, this gives nice effect when rivers flow into the lake from one side, and you paint Flowmap on the lake that water should move in direction which water push into the lake. So yeah, you really could play a lot with these lakes and get very nice and interesting effect, especially when it also contains physics information, so objects on the lakes could swim as well. Terrain. When we look at the terrain, we could carve the terrain, and we have the same debug as on our river. We could add noises inside and outside the lake surface. So we could for sure scale these noises and get very nice result. Then we could, for example, carve our terrain, and as well as we had with our river, we have terrain painting section when we could paint our terrain with different textures. We simply could mix the textures, for example, to sand, and we also have separated rocks for lake bed and surface outside the lake for cliffs. Yeah, definitely very useful tool. And as it uses profiles, when you change the values and you think there are much better fit the lake, you simply go to basic and you could override the profile with new setup, and you got it. So look how fast we could now create our lake. Just we simply create the river, create lake polygon, and we go to profiles, we go to terrain, we carve terrain, we paint terrain, and done. This is how fast we could generate lake surface on our terrain. Yeah, but there is something more we could show. Lakes also contain simulation tool. You set up one point in the middle and you go to simulation section and you could simulate. Basically, you set up how far from the point you want to check terrain, principle 150 meters, and you got the lake. Very easy way to get nice lake in shape which you feel that fit for lakes, right? Of course, you could also generate lake from one point on the border, but it sometimes gives strange result. We rather do not advise this. Of course, in many cases it could work pretty well, but I feel like one point in the middle is rather the best way to generate. This checkbox about remove first point in simulation is very important, because if you will uncheck this and you will generate lake from the middle, you will get such a result, because this point was calculated as a border of the lake. If you will check this, you will remove the first point, which is the middle of the lake, and click simulation, you will get proper result. Of course, there are buttons like in River, about tips, and manual video tutorial, and of course Vegetation Studio support there is as well, and it works similar as in River. So yeah, definitely something that you could play with it. Another core feature of our systems is that you could connect lake with rivers and rivers with rivers. Very important feature. There are two ways to connect them. First is with alpha, where you could connect totally different surfaces and systems, even our river with other solution, and it's alpha solution. You simply have to have one surface over the another, and then with vertex color you simply blend them with vertex color alpha. Of course, I will fix this connection for you on your eyes. Remember that these two surfaces must have different render queue. River must be over the lake. It's to avoid Z fighting between transparent surfaces. Yeah, very important thing. So okay, now let's go to vertex alpha and let's fix this connection at your eyes. We reduce alpha, we take a marker and we simply blend it. Totally easy, and you could do this with any water surfaces, even for example with aquas or other water systems as well. Yeah, we rather advise you to do it pretty smooth. Okay, but we also say that you could get nice result when you move lake surface in the same direction as the river push water inside the lake. So if you go to vertex color, we will increase waves. We'll give big waves in this area with B vertex color, and in Flowmap we'll simply change the direction of the lake so it will be the same direction as the river have. So let's adjust this a bit. Let's move these arrows into our river direction. Yeah, something like that. Now we'll make it pretty smooth to avoid problems with UV. As I always say, Flowmap must be smooth surface, and we see it works. Of course, we probably should slow down this lake surface because it looks a bit odd, but when we slow down it, we see we get pretty nice result like that. Yeah, so we see that river push water into the middle of the lake. Very interesting effect. I told you that we could connect totally different surfaces with such a connection. Look, here we connect a swamp with a green river, for example. Yeah, it works pretty well. We could connect, of course, swamp lake with swamp river. We could connect river with sea. Look, let's play a bit with this connection. First of all, we always have to remember that and check render queue between these two surfaces. If there is proper difference, that I mean the river is above the sea, it's fine. Okay, so now if we'll go to vertex color and we'll paint by vertex alpha, we'll get nice blending. Voila! How easy it was. And of course, I only make I do this in very simple way, but you could spend a bit more time and give totally much better result. And this also means that you could connect your rivers with sea, with swamps, everything. This gives you totally freedom with water surfaces. Yeah. Next thing that next way of connection which we want to show you is connection between rivers while they use the same material. This one is more difficult because you have mother river and its child. First of all, you have to keep some V resolution on your river, because you will split by this V value mesh into two surfaces. It's very important to have a bit bigger value. For example, here we have from 6 we have 3 and 3. It's very simple to disconnect one river into two new rivers. I think I will show you this on a new example. First of all, we create a river spline. Yes, like this. Then we'll create another spline. Now we could connect these rivers simply by drag and drop one river into beginning of the ending or ending of the another. And yeah, the second thing that is very important, that this river need the same resolution and profile. So we choose profile, the same material for both rivers. Yeah, we of course could adjust this connection a bit, I mean add some points. Yeah, pretty easy. And we will adjust also UVs, so it will be pretty the same. Yeah, it's fine now. But what we could do more? We could, for example, add another river. We'll reduce V usage on the one river, and in this place, when we have a gap, we will add another river. Again, we simply drag and drop river which we want to connect. Then we choose the profile, proper profile. It must be the same as these two rivers. We will reduce V usage, mesh usage, right? And voila, we got very nice connection. Remember that flow map and flow noises should be the same on every river, because you will get problems with UV, mostly with tessellation. So yeah, try to keep the same values on all rivers to get seamless connection. Now we will make this river a bit shorter, and we will try to split it into another two rivers. Like we made a connection, now we could disconnect this river into another two rivers. So let's create another river. Yeah, create spline, few points, and another one. Yeah, create river spline, few points. Yes, let's now connect these rivers. First thing is to drag and drop river as a, choose the beginning of the river, we choose a mother, and we will do exactly the same operation for the second river as well. Yes, and we have disconnected river. We of course adjust the usage. We could connect more than 2 rivers. It could be 3 rivers, 4 rivers, 5 rivers. It depends always from amount of verts that you have on your river, because you have to use at least one mesh grid, one triangle to for a river, right? River must have mesh. When you move these points, you see that they follow the connection, so you could totally modify this river and nothing will happen bad with this connection. They still be holded and they will work fine. This is most difficult connection, because you truly have to think about UVs, especially when you connect more rivers. For example, like 3 rivers which are disconnected and connected, and you have to hold the same UV values. You have to keep the same automatic Flowmap values, the same Flowmap noises, because if you will not keep eye on it, you will get simply bad result. You will get gaps, and that's why it's most difficult connection. When you think about reflection, it also gives a bit difficult, because when you use alpha blending reverse, you also alpha blend reflections. Remember that Unity standard use for transparent shader, it use reflection per object. So it's useful to set reflection props on the river connections to minimize the problem of reflection between 2 surfaces which are connected. Of course, in HDRP this have been fixed, so you could use planar reflection, you could use reflection props, and every reflection would be correct. But in Unity standard, you are still stopped by reflection per object. So one reflection probe for one river mesh. Yeah, it's pretty annoying, but you are able to jump over this. Anyway, look, we built nice looking river with connections and everything works fine. Of course, we take care about UV scales with many connections. Sometimes you have to spend some time and calculate something, how UV values will be spread about over the river. In most cases, we do this automatic. We gray out the option, so we are not able to, for example, modify it. But when you connect to multiple rivers, sometimes you have to adjust one value manually. Anyway, there is something epic which we want to show you as well. It's physics. Let's play with these 2 objects. It's very easy to adjust physics for them. First of all, you have to remember that our river have to use mesh collider for physics calculation, and there is also option that you have to check in project setting in physics, that water surface will not collide with default. It's because we want to flow object over the water surface instead of stop it. So yeah, there's a object in rigid body and R.A.M beyond script and some kind of collider. R.A.M beyond script will add the rigid body automatically, so no worries. There are a few values to adjust, which will give you ability to play with the whole physics behave. This value will speed up the object. If you will put it lower, it will move faster. This could reduce this effect. of course. By buoyancy and mass, you could adjust amount of the behavior of the object. If mass will be higher, you need to put higher buoyancy value. If mass will be lower, you could put buoyancy to lower values. Yeah, you will simply see this. Let's change the mass, and you see the object goes down. Yeah, but we could, for example, put it on the riverbed as well with high mass. We could change its speed and angular behave on the water by change viscosity angular. And if we'll put too low buoyancy value in relation to mass, we could also put objects into riverbed. And in opposite, if the value will be too small, will be get bad result as well. You could use continuous dynamic physics, but yeah, you probably don't need it. There's also a value which called point in axis, which could increase the resolution of the physics, but probably in most cases you don't need it at all. We see that our object floating really nice on our river, and it behaved pretty natural. We could increase this value point in axis, but I think it's not worth to put more calculations. I think the result is pretty okay. We see that it also works on lakes. Our objects move with lake Flowmap. We have the same situation at seaside. Yeah, sea also could move object as well. Yeah, and we have box on the river. It's pretty simple, just one script with two components. And remember that you should use this script and collider on the top of the object if you have LODs, right? We see that this box moves out from the river, and it was pushed into lake, but the lake moves water inside to the river. Anyway, there's another cool thing that we could do. It's vertex coloring. If you will put a rock into our river, it will be automatically wet. You could adjust threshold and influence of water over the water surface. Yeah, very cool feature. You simply have wet objects as they only touch the water surfaces. If you use lava, they will be automatically heated. So yeah, it saves a lot of design time. Of course, this is saved in vertex color, so you have to watch out. Vertex colors are saved on scene file. It also means that they are not connected to mesh anymore. Anyway, there's another shader with cool features which support wetness. It's shader which have top projection of moss or any other texture that you want, and it also supports wetness. It's pretty advanced shader. You see, with our R.A.M coloring script, we could adjust this as well, and for example, get nice wet rocks on the bottom of the river out of the box without spending time. Yeah, we could modify this object not only by script but also by our Vertex painter, which is designed to work with objects. For example, rocks. We could, for example, make it wet in any place that we want, for example, or we simply could make it a bit dry. And yeah, with for example, with green channel and red, we could remove moss, or we could make rock which is wet without moss as well. It's just a matter of combination between vertex colors which you use in the object. Very interesting thing. But there is something that you will probably do not predict. You could connect your vertex colors with physics and and wetness. So simply few moves will give you a nice result. We put here our script vertex coloring R.A.M, and we check that it should be affected on play mode. We choose the layer of water which will affect our surface, and voila, we have wet floating object which is wet at real time. Of course, we have to adjust threshold and influence of the water. Yeah, it will take a bit time for this. Yeah, now we could, for example, scale it, and yeah. And what we have here, when we adjust properly wetness, we could, for example, create a boat which moves on the water surface, and the funny thing is that it could be wet just when it moves on noisy area or it's on the sea. You could also use it, for example, for vehicles which cross the river and become dirty. Or you, for example, have a road, dirty road, and your vehicle move across the road and it get a dirty noise on itself, right? So it's something that you definitely should play with, and it's worth of spending time, and I would say it's worth of design new ways which could use in your game. Just, yeah, it's tasty part of this system. Now we will play with materials. I will show you what they could do. First of all, if we go to material, for example, C material, we will see a lot of sliders and a few textures. First thing that you could manage is the connection between terrain and water surface. The size of the clean water, the size of the shallow, the normals, their depth, the tessellation depth, a lot of things that you could do. So yeah, let's play with these materials. What we have here. If we will move clean fall off multiply, we'll see that it changed the connection between water and terrain surface. In shallow, we simply adjust when the depth water stat. We could, for example, get such a result as well. Next thing is pretty important. It's translucency. We set a small overlight on the waves. It's natural behave. We strongly recommend to adjust this in deep water because it's stronger in that place. And anyway, it really gives nice results, especially when it moves with Flowmap. It depends on the high map, actually, and a bit with normal maps. Everything is moved and distorted by Flowmap. So we have, of course, normal scales in far and close distance and smoothness. Smoothness basically is responsible for reflection, the strength of the reflection. You could see example that we have very small waves and very high smoothness, and we have very reflective flake. Yeah, it's lovely. I think it's lovely. And for example, in our seaside, we have this in every water we have distortion. We could adjust separately normal for far distance and close distance. It's mostly, we designed this mostly for reflection, that you could get sharp reflection in far distance while water in close distance is pretty sharp. Look, this is how it will behave. Yeah, with proper adjustment it could give really nice results, and it's definitely something that you should play with that to adjust to your goal. Here we have a setup for microwaves, and they basically made by wind. If we'll put in low value, we get some kind of a bit plastic, still is at water, right? But yeah, it's matter of your goal how you will set up this. I think that small value of microwaves gives a very nice effect and very natural look. Macrowaves are responsible for these big shapes, big waves over the water. Of course, we could change the normal scale or tessellation scale, so waves will be bigger. Yeah, and the same setup we have basically for all type of water. I mean, the slow water, small cascade, big cascade. You have separate setup for each stage of water. If you think about this, this water and cascades, we show you that you could change when this cascade show up by normals on the surface, but as they are work with normals of the shape, you could also change the when each layer show up with, on which angle of normal each appear, right? So you could change the when waterfalls start, when small cascades start. You have of course angle to choose and its fall off, so you could make smooth or very sharp situation. It depends on the surface which you use. Yeah. So there's another cool thing that we made is that we add separate transparency for waterfalls. In most cases, probably you want to, for example, be in the background of the waterfall and see the word in the second side. So you could increase the transparency of the waterfall and you will get nice effect. But watch out, it also influence rivers. Not only waterfalls will be affected by this, right? The whole river could get this result. Of course, we could change the speed of each stage, right? We could really increase or slow down. Also in every direction. Here, when Flowmap is pretty straight, the first value, the x value, will not influence this much, but there is also slow and every water mix, which is something that will only mix normals a bit during movement. And you could also use this for a wind, right? Because you will simply move water surface from the wind direction. So yeah, this is could be used like that. If we go to the seaside, we see that we have nice foam. This foam is basically distorted and mixed by waves. It's very complex thing. You could change its speed separately. You could change its tilling also in every direction. Very cool thing. And we also have control over foam propagation. I mean, we could, for example, play with foam depth and change how strong it is, how sharp it is on the water border, mostly for stylized shaders. Yeah, we could also change the influence of the tessellation and refraction over the foam. You see that it gives additional noise. I mean, Flowmap change the foam all the time while the waves are moving. So yeah, this gives you ability to get nice foam without repetitive look, right? It's very natural effect. Of course, there's also tessellation setup, tessellation density, tessellation Pong values. Basically, the tessellation Pong values will make your spline very smooth, even if you have very low amount of verts, but it's only for tessellation. Anyway, there is also swamp shader, swamp material, which works almost the same like simple other water shader, but it's mostly focused on albedo and layers which flow on its surface. So it have detail, albedo map, normal map, and one yeah, it's pretty nice. You see we mixing duckweed with roots, and it's pretty nice. But there's a very important texture that we compress two layers of smoothness into one texture. Basically, we call it means that in green channel we have smoothness for layer 1, and in alpha channel we have smoothness for layer 2. For example, if we will look on the leaves material, it works the same as the swamp. We have also roots, we have leaves which are wet. You have full control over smoothness and specularity of each layer, and it gives pretty nice result even on river when all these leaves float over the surface. Yeah, I think this will give you ability to build a really nice looking environment. Remember that we also provide few types of materials, shaders, the mobile shader, the tessellated, and offset shaders. They all works the same, besides that mobile doesn't support tessellation and it's a bit compressed in textures. It uses less textures, and it has checkbox to support older devices, and there is a offset shader which doesn't support tessellation. By the way, if we look, we say that R.A.M could work on every shape. You could see that here we have floating island which have a shape of water on it, and water moves naturally into the shore, into the island in the middle and outside. So welcome to world of the disk world, right? And it's also possible to do this as well. We even could make fountains. If we look on the road materials, it could be simple standard material. Maybe sometimes it should be a bit offset in shader. There's an option to add offset. It's all for this tutorial. I hope you learn a lot about this system from it. And yeah, good luck with your development. Play with this system, build something interesting. Everything was designed for users.